Hello! Hello everyone! Today we continue to look at HCIA cloud computing. We have already introduced the overall IT development trend. Next, we will formally start an introduction to cloud computing. First of all, we are here. Before we talk about computing, let's first learn about the history of computer development and some of the technical developments of virtualization. Then we will introduce cloud computing. Well, today let's first look at the basic concept of a computer is something that everyone is definitely familiar with, right? You all know this term very well. But if you mention computers, the first thing that comes to mind is definitely our desktop computers and laptops, right? This is a computer. But in fact, servers and some storage devices, network devices, security devices, etc. are actually computers. These things are all computers. The official explanation or concept of a computer is actually a modern electronic computing machine used for high-speed calculations. So, as long as it can perform some calculations and is an electronic machine, it qualifies as a type of computer. In practical production environments, there are many devices we can use, and their functions can vary, So, some devices might not seem like computers at first glance, but as long as they are electronic devices, they can basically be considered a type of computer. It can perform numerical calculations. It can also perform logical operations and has memory storage capabilities. This is actually one of the basic characteristics of a computer. Moreover, computers can also operate according to programs, running automatically and processing massive amounts of data at high speeds. This is essentially what a computer is. So, to sum it up in one sentence, a computer is actually a super tool of our digital age. And what about cloud computing? What is the role of this tool for us? It's essentially an amplifier of its capabilities, which is our foundation. This thing is still a computer. That hasn't changed. So why do we do cloud computing? The main purpose is to transform our traditional computers. Let's just refer to them all as computers here, since there are indeed too many types to list individually, into something else. What does it become? It becomes a being. High performance. It can independently handle tasks such as numerical and logical calculations, for example, AI reasoning, AI computation, and AI learning, including Let the programs run automatically to manage our services and handle some of our data automatically. In terms of intelligence, this spans from personal office work to aerospace computing. These fields, from the smallest to the largest, cannot do without computers. Cloud computing is really just about making our computers more user-friendly. More user-friendly. So here, the basic development of computers actually started much earlier. Right? Most of the time, we generally think it started in 1946, right? We usually consider 1946 as the starting point. It just appeared, but actually it was even earlier than that. Actually, it started even earlier, around 1889. At that time, it was generally referred to as an electric tabulating machine. This is a form of data processing, using punched cards, which were used for early batch processing. In 1930, the first analog electronic computer was introduced, when it really got to our point. In 1946, the US military developed computers primarily for calculating various military-related issues. For example, the flight trajectory of missiles and other related content was primarily used for calculating these aspects. Initially, it was used for warfare, but of course, after the war ended, it gradually... When did we start using computers in industries? Gradually, of course. Initially, it was primarily in the military sector and industrial applications, because at first, there really weren't any computers in everyday life or traditional industries. So here, it actually gets to this point. Well, it was the worst, especially in the beginning. Computers were actually very large. At first, they were really huge. Some of your ordinary, right? You add, he basically moved it. He couldn't move it into the house because at the beginning, the computer Let's start with this computer from 1964, which weighed about 30 tons. 30 tons. Then it gradually developed and started to get smaller, little by little. So here it probably started in the 1970s. The beginning of 1970 was a very important day. 1970 was a very important day. Well, in 1970, one of the main things we saw was the official rise of the software industry. For example, the link system. The link system has been in use since 1970. Of course, the amount of use at that time was not very large. Now, basically, as long as there are some systems in some servers, most of them are using the system. It started in 1970. In 1970, the hardware and software were first separated. Before this, there really wasn't a clear distinction between hardware and software. They were basically considered one entity. Starting from 1970, the Linux operating system, where the HCIA was born, and our software gradually separated from the hardware, allowing for independent use. Then, starting from 1975, that's when we saw the emergence of V-type computers, which are basically microcomputers. Before this, computers were generally quite large. But from 1975 onwards, we began to see smaller, micro-sized computers. Then in 1977, color ones appeared. Color televisions. That is, some graphical interfaces. In 1983, the first computer with a graphical user interface that used a mouse appeared. Before that, there were basically no mice. People just used the keyboard to type. Until we reached this point. In the early 21st century, the memory here has achieved a leap in development. By the early 21st century, we started seeing DDR memory. DDR memory. The capacity of hard drives has also gradually increased, reaching over 40 GB. Okay. Here actually. Since the beginning of the 21st century, we have already been in a stage of rapid development of computers. A stage of rapid development, basically. A few years, or even a few months now, right? If it's a few months, there are some new hardware, right? In fact, the memory, CPU memory, hard disk, and graphics card, etc., the update frequency of the hardware in the computer is very high. Basically, every few months, a new product is released every few months. In fact, it has gradually become like this. Now, the speed of development is getting faster and faster, and the pace of updates is also accelerating. Whether it's our smartphones, laptops, desktops, or servers, the rate of progress and updates is extremely rapid. Including both software and hardware. I just talked about hardware, but software is also evolving quite rapidly, right? Especially for some service software we use in servers. Those get updated frequently. Basically every few weeks for the faster ones. The slower ones are updated every few months. The update speed is extremely fast. Actually, the overall trend in this industry is that competition is becoming increasingly fierce. The competition is getting more and more intense. This is actually an overview of the overall history of computer development. So here, this is actually the overall development process of computers. Now, from this point, when it comes to cloud computing, the main focus here is on computation. We have just mentioned its function. It is actually an optimization of our computer, the computer itself. That's what we do. Right? It is already like this. No matter how you do it, it is just a computer. You can't make much progress. Cloud computing or virtualization is actually a big innovation for our computers. It can be said that because a single machine is online, it is there. No matter how good your hardware is, there is a limit to a single machine. But with virtualization and cloud, we basically have no limit. It's a cluster of services, and that's the main content we have here. If anyone wants to learn about Huawei's cognitive technology or wants to access Huawei's certification question bank, feel free to message me, or you can leave a comment below for technical discussions. All right, that's it for today. Bye, everyone.